Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling something really specific, a detailed business plan. It's for a new R&D and prototyping lab in India, focusing squarely on electronics and IoT solutions.
Yeah, we've got this PDS, this blueprint, basically,
Yeah,
and it lays out everything.
exactly. Think of this as us unpacking that blueprint for you. The vision, the strategy, the practical stuff, even the financials. We're digging into the key insights from this document.
That's the plan. It's quite ambitious, mapping out how they want to build this innovation hub for the Indian market, which is, moving so fast. It's not just ideas, it's steps and resources.
Okay, so let's start right at the core. Every business needs that identity. What's the stated vision and mission here?
Well, the vision is pretty clear, become a premier innovation lab. But
Yeah.
it's the focus that's key, smart, practical, scalable electronics and IoT, and specifically for India. And the mission. It's about empowering others, startups, entrepreneurs, smaller manufacturers, giving them access to, well, affordable, user-focused solutions, prototypes, consultation, getting their ideas moving.
So enabling others is sort of baked into their success. How do they plan to stand out? What's the value proposition?
A few things jump out. Speed is one they talk about, rapid concept to prototype service. Also, the focus on smart, efficient, modular products.
Okay.
But maybe the most interesting bit, especially for India, is this dual model. They plan to sell R&D services to businesses that's B2B and also sell their own developed products directly to consumers, B2C.
Their dual approach is interesting. So they're not banking solely on landing big B2B contracts right away.
Seems like it. It gives them flexibility.
Who are they actually targeting with this? Which customers?
The document highlights three main groups. First, startups. They need minimum viable products, MVPs, quick, affordable versions to test the waters.
Right, the classic MVP need.
Second, you've got traditional Indian manufacturers, maybe companies looking to add smart features to existing products but lacking the in-house R&D.
Modernizing legacy products. Okay.
And third, just direct consumers, people wanting to buy smart home gadgets and tools for themselves.
Okay, so enabling businesses and selling direct. How does this translate into making money? What are the revenue channels mentioned?
They pretty much mirror that dual model. On the B2B side, it's selling the know-how. Concepting, design, development, prototyping, co-development even. Integrations, pilot production runs, customizations. It's like selling the lab's brainpower and its making capacity.
Makes sense. Services-based.
Then you have the ready-to-use channel. That's the B2C side, selling the products they develop, direct online, maybe through resellers too.
And there was a third.
Yes, white label manufacturing. So making products for other brands, but under that brand's name. Potentially quite scalable.
That white labeling could definitely add scale later. Okay, vision, revenue streams. How does a lab actually work? What's the process flow from idea to product?
They lay out a clear sequence, starts with the concept, then design, then building the prototype. After that, crucially, validate.
Testing it works.
Exactly. Then pilot production, small batches, then sell. But importantly, there's a feedback loop that feeds back into improve and only then scale. That validation and feedback cycle is key for this kind of rapid iteration.
Essential to avoid building something nobody wants or that doesn't work right.
Precisely.
So within that flow, what specific services are they offering?
Well, beyond the core R&D and prototyping, they specifically mention doing pilot production batches. Small runs, they say, from 5 up to maybe 1,000 units.
That's useful for startups needing that first batch of inventory.
Definitely. They also list on-demand customization and IoT advisory services, helping clients figure out how to integrate these solutions.
And quality control. With rapid prototyping, how do they make sure things are reliable?
The plan mentions functional testing, sure, but also field validation for every prototype, getting it out of the lab.
Real-world testing.
Right. And there's a specific 3-month feedback window mentioned before a product goes to mass rollout. That structured period seems designed to catch those real-world bugs.
Okay, let's talk products. This is where it gets tangible. What are the first things they plan to make? Say, in the first 0 to 3 months.
They've listed 5 initial ones, and they seem quite practical, aimed at everyday problems, which fits their practical vision.
Like what?
Okay. A smart switch controller, Wi-Fi based. The idea is to make any existing switchboard smart without rewiring, potentially a huge thing in India.
Yeah, I can see that being popular.
Then a motion-triggered light module, simple automation for bathrooms, staircases, that sort of thing.
Basic convenience.
A basic plant soil sensor with just a buzzer or LED. Simple plant watering reminder. Very straightforward.
Low complexity, high utility, maybe.
Seems like it.
Uh-huh.
Also, a DIY IoT education kit for schools, hobbyists, tapping into that maker interest.
Interesting, the education angle.
And finally, a temperature and fire alarm combo. Basic safety for kitchens, maybe small workshops or factories.
Those seem like pretty smart initial choices. Relatively simple, useful, defined markets. What about looking further out, the next 18 months or so?
The pipeline definitely shows growth and more complexity. Things like a smart doorbell with a camera, a water tank level monitor that sends SMS alerts, very relevant in many places.
Yes, water monitoring is key.
Later on, they list things like a smart LPG sensor for gas safety, a budget GPS tracker, even a pet feeder timer.
Covering a wider range of needs.
Yeah. And for industrial use, an industrial machine uptime logger. Further out, they mention a modular smart home hub, an AI edge camera. It shows a clear roadmap exploring different segments.
Definitely shows ambition beyond the starting 5. Okay, to build all this, what about the physical setup, the team, the tools? What are the foundations?
Physically, they start lean, around 200 SQ feet in Noida. Just a basic setup. Tables, storage racks, UPS power backup, internet.
Keeping it minimal at first.
Right. But the plan includes expanding into an adjacent room later for dedicated QA and assembly space as things grow, phased approach to space.
Smart. Minimizing that initial CapEx, the upfront capital spending.
Exactly. And OpEx too, the ongoing costs.
Speaking of costs, what about people? The team. How do they plan to build that?
Also very phased, tied to growth over 24 months. Phase 1 is the founders, plus interns, initial engineers, electronics, mechanical, and someone for sales.
The core group.
Phase 2 adds assemblers, another electrical engineer, and someone for finance and procurement, getting more structured.
Right.
Phase 3 is the big scale-up. More assemblers, dedicated QA people, a full-stack IoT developer, bigger sales team, CRM system, operations roles, more engineers across the board, HR, admin. Scaling up purchasing and inventory management, too. It's a gradual ramp-up.
Matching headcount to workload.
Oh.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the tools. What kind of equipment do you need for this kind of R&D and pilot production?
The list is pretty detailed. They separate development tools from pilot production tools. For dev work, you need things like a digital oscilloscope, that's for looking at electronic signals, high-res soldering stations for fiddly work, maybe a spectrum analyzer for wireless stuff.
Standard electronics lab gear.
Pretty much. For pilot production, it shifts towards efficiency. Multiple soldering stations, maybe a semi-automatic pick-and-place machine that puts components onto circuit boards faster than by hand. A reflow oven for soldering lots of boards at once.
Batch processing.
Yeah. And importantly, an automated optical inspection setup, AOI, that uses cameras to automatically check for tiny soldering mistakes.
Ah, quality control for those small batches. Got it. And just keeping parts on hand. Inventory.
They plan for a 30 to 60-day supply of key stuff. Microcontrollers like ESP32s, Node MCUs, Arduino's popular low-cost options, various sensors, LEDs, wires, connectors, blank PCBs, enclosures.
The building blocks.
And consumables, too, of course.
Yep.
Flux, solder, thermal paste.
The plan notes the list is indicative. It'll change based on what they're actually building.
Actually. Okay, we've covered vision, operations, products, resources. Let's get to the bottom line. The numbers. What's the financial picture look like for the first couple of years? Well, they provide a cost-optimized cash flow estimate for 24 months. And, as you'd expect, starting out involves investment. So there's an initial period of negative cash flow.
Burning cash initially.
Right. That's the CapEx for equipment, plus the ongoing OpEx salaries, rent kicking in before the revenue really ramps up.
Standard startup trajectory. When do they expect to hit the turning point? Break even.
The planned projects break even around month 12, hitting profitability within the first year.
Wow. Within a year for a hardware R&D setup. That feels ambitious.
It is ambitious, definitely. Depends heavily on hitting those early sales targets for both services and products.
Assuming they do hit break even at month 12, what happens after that?
After that point, the projection shows steady, strong, positive cash flow. Revenue growth starts to significantly outpace the expense growth, so they begin accumulating cash.
And what's the final number? The cumulative cash position after 24 months.
The projection lands at a cumulative cash flow of 74,077,000, so roughly 7.5 million rupees.
Positive 7.5 million.
Positive, yes. Suggesting that, according to the plan, they should be financially healthy and accumulating significant capital within 2 years. But again, these are projections. Execution is everything.
Absolutely. Projections are one thing, reality another. Especially with hardware and supply chains, how does the plan talk about managing risks? Risk mitigation, governance.
They outline a few key things. That dual revenue model, B2B plus B2C, is itself a risk mitigation strategy, not putting all eggs in one basket.
Diversification.
Right. Keeping initial capex low, outsourcing where feasible,
Right.
that helps reduce upfront financial risk. For oversight, they mention regular monthly financial audits and using a tax tracker.
Keeping tabs on things.
Automated stock level alerts for inventory to avoid running out of crucial parts. That 3-month feedback loop and the 30-day field review per product, that's risk mitigation for product quality.
Makes sense.
And even planning team roles with some overlap so if someone's out, things don't grind to a halt.
Practical steps. Seems thought through. Now, beyond the core stuff, R&D, prototyping, making things, did they mention any other sort of value-added services?
Yes, a couple of interesting ones, offering IoT customization specifically for legacy industries. So helping older businesses, maybe in manufacturing or agriculture, integrate smart tech. That could be a big market in India.
Helping traditional sectors modernize. Yeah, potential there.
And also those educational kits we mentioned earlier, plus training workshops. That's not just revenue. It positions them as kind of a knowledge hub, too.
Yeah.
Helps build the ecosystem.
Right, more than just a service provider, also an enabler and educator. Okay, so we've really walked through this plan now, from the big vision empowering innovation in India through the operational strategy, the first products, the future pipeline, the resources needed, people, space, tools, the financials showing that path to profitability, and the risk mitigation. It's a pretty comprehensive look at building this kind of lab.
It really does feel like a full blueprint, covering a lot of ground for what they want to achieve.
So, stepping back from the document itself for a final thought. Based on everything we've discussed, this dual model, the product choices, phased growth, the focus on pilot runs, those ambitious financials, what do you think is the single biggest factor that'll make or break this venture in India's competitive tech scene? What's the one thing you'll be watching?